As with the video game industry, movies, books, music, and others, Dungeons & Dragons and tabletop role-playing is moving to a more digital era. You might have noticed when One DnD got officially announced some weeks ago, there was a heavy emphasis on the digital side of things. And on top of that, Wizards of the Coast has bought D&D Beyond, the essential digital character sheet and book holder, if you will, for Dungeons & Dragons. This shift to digital has been happening in other types of entertainment and has also been happening in tabletop role-playing games and is going to get even more pronounced in the coming years. So I'm going to explain in this video the pros and cons of this shift to digital in Dungeons & Dragons. Let's get on with it, shall we? Before we jump into the pros and cons, I want to discuss why this is happening. So probably one of the biggest drivers of this is profit, simply put, because the profit margin on digital products is 100% or close to 100%. Because when you have a physical product, you have to print it, send it from the printers to a warehouse, and from this warehouse it has to be sent to retailers, and then retailers will take a cut from that, and so on and so forth. So in the end, if you sell a book for, let's say, $50, you will only make a certain percentage of profit from that. Let's say $20, roughly. I don't know what the exact number is. I don't work in tabletop role-playing games, but let's say it's $20. So you're losing $30 for every $20 sold. Whereas with a digital product, you sell it for, let's say, $50 again. You don't have to give up any percentage of that. Unless you're selling it on another digital storefront, they will take a cut. But if you're selling it on your own front, like D&D Beyond, which is owned by Wizards now, they don't lose any money. They put the product there. It's digital. There's no printing required. That's it. They make so much more money this way. So it makes sense that Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro would want to push into this digital landscape because there's just more money to be made. It's plain and simple. The other one is that fixing mistakes comes a lot easier when your content is digital first, because if you want to fix something like the Hadozi in Spelljammer, you just need to push an update, and then everyone who has that digital content, bam, update is there. With physical, you have to make another print to fix the issue, and you cannot fix what has already been printed. Now, I don't think in the future there won't be physical, but it might be that digital content comes out first and physical will come out some months later. We'll see how that all plays out. And there's also other benefits that come with digital content, but let's move on to the pros and cons, and I will discuss those other points. Pro number one, you have access to your content wherever you are as long as you have an internet connection and a device. If you're going to a convention or you're going on a trip or whatever, you have access to all of your content on your device, which is a lot easier than having to bring several books with you, because those books, they're heavy if you're traveling. You don't want that kind of weight with you when you're traveling, so having access to your content anywhere online, it's handy. I'll admit it, it's very useful. Also, digital content doesn't eat up physical space. I know, many of you love having the physical books on show. They're a nice piece of decoration, don't get me wrong, that's nice, but for some people, they don't want that stuff because it eats up a lot of space. Having a lot of books just eats up space, and especially if you move a lot, it makes moving very difficult and very uncomfortable. So having purely digital content solves that issue, to be honest. Pro number two, this is more of a personal one for me, but as a dungeon master, I find it a lot more comfortable to organize games in a digital environment than in a physical environment. Your mileage may vary. As I said, this is just a purely me thing, but I run my games mostly on Foundry VTT, and for me, it's so much more easier digitally to organize things. I use a module that gives me a digital DM screen that I can pop up and down from the screen. I can make tabs within that GM screen for different types of information. I can make columns and rows, have all types of different documents and character sheets and general information that I can easily get to whenever I need it, just at my fingertips. I can be like, I go to this tab to check on how much this weapon costs, for example. I don't need to whip up the book or have to remember it off my head. It just makes it so much easier for me to organize that stuff. By the way, if you want to see that setup and how I set up things in Foundry VTT, leave a comment below. I'd love to make a video on that topic if enough people are interested in seeing how I organize my work in Foundry VTT. On top of that, you can have your battle maps be completely digital, which I find to be a lot easier to handle with all the different tokens that are moving around. For me, making making physical tokens or physical minis is just not something I'm very good at or comfortable with doing, so this is just so much more easier for me, where I can get nice artwork and put it in there, and it just works so much better. On top of that, your battle maps can have cool effects like rain and fog. You can add sound effects and, as I said, music, and it just makes it so much more easier. And this digital space also allows me to organize notes very nicely and very neatly and easily refer to them, and just makes also running combat so much more easier, where you don't have to do the math yourself. You can easily see and measure things. For me personally, it's just so much more easier to run things in a digital space than in a physical one. Again, your mileage may vary. You might prefer doing it in physical, but this is a pro in my book. Pro number 3, the digital approach makes it easier for newcomers to come to D&D, because in the beginning, when you're starting to play D&D and you get your character sheet in front of you, it can be very confusing and daunting. So if the DM asks you, would you roll a perception check for me? You're a new player, your eyes will be darting around the paper trying to find, where is perception? What do I do again? Okay, so I have to roll a d20. Wait, what do I add to it? Where's the number? There's so much mental load in learning where the information is on a character sheet. Whereas if you're playing digitally and I ask you, hey, roll a perception check for me, you simply click perception, the dice is rolled for you automatically, and the number that you need is added to that roll, and boom, here is your result. You don't have to do any math yourself. For some people, doing math quickly like that can be challenging. So I think having it digitally like this just makes it more approachable and accessible for new people. On top of that, you can also automate a lot of stuff in Foundry, at least when it comes to combat, so that you don't have to remember a lot of stuff yourself. For example, in my games, I automate rage so that you don't have to remember to add damage, or sneak attack, so sneak attack damage is automatically added to the roll, and checking for the wild sorcerer's wild magic table. These are things that you can easily forget, but in a digital space, you can automate them so that you don't have to remember. It just takes off a mental load from you having to remember things. And I think in general, this makes it more approachable for newcomers to the game, and they can have an easier time learning the game and focusing on playing the game rather than having to remember where exactly which skill is on their little piece of paper. Pro number 4, you can play with anyone, anywhere around the world. This, I think, is a really powerful thing, because back in ye olden days, if you didn't have people to play with in a physical space, that was it. You couldn't play. Now, you can easily play with anyone, anywhere around the world, as long as you have a good enough internet connection. You can hop on Discord or whatever program that you choose, maybe Zoom, and just start playing. It's really, really amazing. And on top of that, since the pool of players is now global, it's also easier to find games. For example, there's a site called startplaying.games where dungeon masters can put up campaigns or one-shots or mini campaigns or whatever they want that they want to run for people, and then you can pay them usually $5 to $30 per session, which in my mind is not a very bad amount of money to be paying someone for a session of a game. And easily you can be like, I really want to play a game this weekend, but I don't have any friends to play with right now, everyone's busy. Let me look up a one-shot on startplaying.games. Boom, you can play a one-shot this weekend, pay, $30 or whatever, and you can play. It's fantastic. I think that's great. It just broadens the amount of people that can play, and it broadens the opportunity for people to play. So I think it's just a net positive overall. And especially now that we've had the pandemic, being able to play digitally with people is just such a fantastic boon for us. I highly enjoy playing digitally. It's just really comfortable for me to be sitting at my own desk, have 2 monitors, have some snacks here and there, and just play with people. Don't get me wrong, I still love playing in person, but digitally also, I just really like it, I think it's a great addition to the hobby. Pro number 5, new technology is taking the digital playing experience really to the next level. As I said, I use Foundry VTT, which I love to play online and digitally. It is such an amazing tool because it's only $50 and the DM only needs to pay for it. It's such a great deal, and the software itself out of the box is very good. It's in active development. Version 10 just came out, if I'm not wrong, but on top of that, it has a robust modding community. So whatever you're thinking, like, oh, I wish I could do this in Foundry, or I wish I could automate this, someone has made a module for it, or someone has made a script that you can do just what you want. Fantastic piece of software. But on top of that, as we saw in the One DnD announcement, the 3D virtual tabletop space is going to be growing big. Wizards is making their own VTT, or D&D Beyond, which is owned by them, is making their own 3D VTT using Unreal Engine 5, which is looking very interesting, very high-end, but we haven't seen much of it outside of that one trailer, so we'll have to see what it looks like. But there's another 3D VTT currently in development still that looks incredibly interesting. It's called Menyr, M-E-N-Y-R. Their Kickstarter is currently currently live. I have backed it myself just for transparency because it looks phenomenal. It's basically their pitches. What if we could take your Dungeons and Dragons game and put it in a AAA video game? And it looks phenomenal. They're also using Unreal Engine 5. They have a lot of experience making video games. They're a video game studio, and it looks just mind-blowingly cool. And it looks like this is going to be the next generation of virtual tabletops, and it can really, I think, take the games to the next level for those who want that really hi-fi experience, and for actual play shows, it can really bump up that experience. And then there's other cool small tools like 3D dice that allows you to just roll 3D dice really quickly and customize them really easily. I'm super excited about the new technology that's coming to the digital space in Dungeons & Dragons and tabletop role-playing games, because it'll just take the games to the next level, and I really want to see that, and I'm excited for that. Now, that's all the pros out of the way. Let's get to the cons side of things. Con number 1, your content is not physical. Granted, I said it in the pro that it's nice to not have physical stuff because it's less clutter, but some people like the physical stuff. You like the tactile feel of having a book in their hands they can skim through and read through. Having a backdrop with a shelf full of books, it does look nice, don't get me wrong. Heck, I'd love to have one for my my videos. And for some people, this is really important for them. They love the physicalness of the books, maps, minis, etc. And it's totally valid. I totally understand where people are coming from, and it's definitely can be seen as a con to not have physical products. Next con number 2, is heavily linked to this, is question about the ownership of your digital content. Now, right now, we don't know how One DnD is going to handle digital ownership, but currently, if you buy a book from D&D Beyond, you can't download that book as a PDF. You can't, which means that at whatever point, in theory, that book could no longer be available digitally. And then what do? You don't have that book anymore. And with One DnD, we don't know what Wizards is going to do with all of this digital content. Will it be similar to what's happened in, games where you don't actually own the game, you just have it licensed, and therefore that license can be revoked at any time, and then you just don't have access to that content anymore, even though you have paid for it? We've seen this happen in games. For example, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, which I think got re-released, but went away for a long time because it got taken out of the store, and other games, and you don't have access to it anymore. Could this be the future of digital content for One DnD? Maybe. We don't know, and I hope it isn't, because it's not nice. What I do like is when I buy third-party products, books that is, usually they come in PDF format, so that's good, because then I have the PDF, and I can keep it myself, and I have it forever. But with D&D Beyond, currently, you can't download them. They're only available through D&D Beyond, so we don't know what's gonna be happening there, and this could be a big danger in the digital shift, and I hope it doesn't go that way. Con number 3, it's related to what we've been talking about, but it is the danger of content getting cut up. Because in video games, when there was the shift from physical to digital, and within this ongoing shift, there has been a trend where games used to be more beefier because they were sold as one product, then they became a little bit shorter, and parts of it got cut up into DLCs, and now we have games where the game comes out and then there's content released constantly, some free and some paid. This works for some games, don't get me wrong, but for some stuff, I don't want it. I just want to buy a single thing and then just have it. Maybe, there's some other content that comes through, but I want like a finished, proper thing rather than having to wait months later for it to be ready. And there is a danger of this happening too when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons. Again, this is just speculation. This is just me drawing a parallel to video games where I work and saying this kind of happened in video games and it wasn't great, and I hope that it doesn't happen in Dungeons and Dragons, which leads me to con number 4, which is product as a service. Now, there were some talks that they're going to be introducing more subscription-like things when it comes to One DnD. Again, we don't know what that means, but there has been this push in games and in movies to move to a more subscription-based business model, because in the long term, it makes you more money than buying off a single product. Now, for some stuff, I think it can work fairly well, but when it comes to One DnD, it could be implemented in a way that's not the best. Granted, D&D Beyond already has a subscription model. They're probably going to expand on that and see how that works, but we don't know where that's going to go, and I hope that it goes in a good direction if they decide to go down that road. But I'm just pointing this out as a danger where it could become something that's not really great. Hey, but on the other hand, you know, there's the Xbox Game Pass, which is great. So we don't know yet. We don't know, but this could be a danger. Lastly, con number 5 is not being able to play in person. There's something really fun and special about playing Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop role-playing games in person at the same table with your friends, rolling dice, laughing, having snacks, just being together. It's a great experience, don't get me wrong. I love that experience. And with this shift to digital, people might be more inclined to play with a digital space rather than with physical tools. And it would be a loss. It would definitely be a loss because playing in person physically is a very special experience. So, in conclusion, there are both pros and cons to the shift to digital in Dungeons and Dragons. Now, I don't think that digital will ever get rid of the physical products and experience of Dungeons and Dragons. No. However, there might become a focus more on digital depending on how sales are affected and how the popularity of the digital content goes going forward and what that digital content takes the shape of. We don't know yet. One DnD is still 2-ish years away and we don't know how they're going to implement all of that stuff. We'll have to see. Even now, the first physical and digital bundles are coming out with the Dragonlance adventure in a month or so. But you can probably tell that I personally like playing digitally and the digital tools that are there for people, but it is up to you. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. What are your feelings on this digitalization, this push to digital that is happening within D&D and tabletop role-playing games? I would love to hear your opinions and comments on this issue. To wrap this up, I stream every Monday and Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern European Standard Time on twitch.tv/funwithfondue. That is twitch.tv/funwithfondue. Link is down there in the description. If you want to come hang out with me and my community and talk about D&D live, you can find me there. And if you're already down there scrolling, please hit that like and subscribe button. It would help me out and my channel, and I would really appreciate that. And right now on the screen you see another video of mine, which I think you should go give a watch because it is a good video. Hey, thank you very much for watching this video. I appreciate the time that you took to watch this. Have a good one, take it nice and easy, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.